Back to the C Space Studio. I'm your host, James Kotecki, here at CES 2024, joined by Mark Marshall of NBCUniversal. You, sir, are the chairman of Global Advertising and Partnerships, and we welcome you to the C Space Studio. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. Happy to be here.
I understand you recently were named to the position of chairman of Global Advertising and Partnerships, and so what does that actually mean? What is your role?
I oversee all of our global ad sales, national ad sales, local ad sales, as well as our tech and marketing for all of NBCUniversal.
Okay, so does that include Peacock streaming?
It does. It includes Peacock as well. So I'm glad you got that. Yeah. That's a good job. Peacock.
Indeed. And so we're here at the beginning of 2024. What are some of the trends that are in your head as you're thinking about the year ahead?
Yeah, I think when we think about it, obviously streaming, as you brought up, Peacock is obviously a big one for everyone right now. I think as we think about streaming, the thing that we're noticing is in our world is streaming's actually bringing in a new audience. It's not just cannibalizing linear. So if you think of Sunday Night Football on NBC, Premier League, NASCAR, golf, all of those grew on linear as well as grew on digital this year.
Yeah.
So actually streaming's bringing in new audience, and as it brings in that new audience, because you're on streaming, you're able to reach them in different ways with programmatic and different elements that allow more advertisers into that.
This brings up a question I've often wondered, and I have so many of these conversations about streaming, and ultimately, is everything just going to be streaming? Is there any fundamental reason why linear should continue to exist after all the people who just refuse to switch to streaming, are gone? Is there anything that's still good about it from a technological perspective?
Well, the craziest part about it is when you think about it, the consumer does not see a difference in it. All they know is it's being served on a television screen.
Yeah.
95% of all of our digital impressions are served on a television screen. So what it is the consumer mindset has changed. As an industry, we haven't changed as much as we need to. So measurement was still bifurcated, and that's what we've been working on, and that's what we announced this week is a way to bring together linear and digital together instead of bifurcating it, because to your point, consumers don't see a difference at this point. And it's just how it's delivered, whether it was delivered from a TV ad server or from a digital ad server, the consumer doesn't know.
So you're bringing those two things together with your announcement here. Ultimately, do you see a world where even advertisers here, we're just not really talking about the difference as much? It's not as big of a deal in conversations like this.
I think the challenge was because we measured them separately, we bifurcated it. So you would have a linear schedule and digital schedule, and then you would duct tape them together at the end and pretended that was cross-platform. Really what we've developed is a completely new tool and system that allows you to look at linear and digital all on one plan. And you'll be able to see what percentage of it was delivered on linear, what was delivered on digital, where the overlap was. That's never existed before. So I think what you're going to start to see is advertisers who love the reach of television for industries like autos or studios, where you need that quick hit, that instantaneous reach. That's really hard to do on streaming. And so you still want that huge reach, but you want the precision of digital. So this allows you to get both of them together as one.
There's one or two interesting events coming up in the year 2024. How are you preparing for the major news events that are going to be coming our way this year?
Yeah, well, we obviously have the election that will impact all of us. And then at NBC, the big one we have is the Olympics in Paris. So we are excited to have the games. We had a run in Asia. We're very excited to have it in Paris. I think we'll get to do some storytelling. We haven't had fans in the stands for two different games as well.
Oh, that's true.
So you think about that, those shots of the parents watching their kid who is swimming, their 30 seconds that they've trained for their whole life.
Yes.
And we'll get to have that back. The other thing that will be nice is the time zone difference will be a lot of the events will be during the day. And so at night, we'll actually get to do some more of the storytelling that we kind of missed in Asia because there was so many live events that what the feedback we got from consumers was we missed the background stories of that. So it'll be a curated nighttime, primetime, plus with more of the storytelling. And then on the streaming, the Olympics will be the biggest streaming event that have ever happened. Over 17 days, it'll be an unbelievable big event.
And do you have to invent or invest in kind of new technologies to actually make that happen behind the scenes? I'm the consumer, as we talked about. I just turn on my TV and I want to watch rowing, and there it is. But behind the scenes, because of the scope and the scale of this, have you had to work very hard behind the scenes to make that happen?
We have. I mean, it's 7,000 hours of programming. Wow. So you think about that, that's like 10 months of programming that all happens in 17 days. So the coordination, starts when we close the flame in one Summer Games. It really starts as we build towards the next one. So we'll be excited because this will be the first Summer Games where every event will be streamed on Peacock, whereas Tokyo, we did not have that at that point yet.
We're talking a lot about AI here at CES and in the C Space Studio, obviously. Yeah. I wonder, using the Olympics as potentially an example, are there ways that we're going to see AI in front of the camera, behind the scenes, Gen AI? Are we going to see that show up at the Olympics 2024 in ways we haven't before?
I don't know if you'll see it in the Olympics yet, because really the generative, you have to get through one game to be able to program what the AI will learn from next games.
I see, yeah.
So you kind of have to get through one cycle of what it is. But what I think you will start to see is we're using AI in our new one platform, total audience, where what we're doing as we're building plans is we're looking at tone, emotion, and what shows are going to make the most sense for an advertiser. Before, it was, I kind of think these shows might do it, does well on reaching adults 18 to 49. Now we actually get to layer on a whole level of AI and machine learning that will help us, and then we'll also be able to take those learnings and actually equate it back to programming as well. What's working, what's resonating, what viewers are being drawn to what types of programming. Do comedies work better for autos, or does toilet paper work better in dramas? Like you'll start to learn more about the advertiser.
Now
and
I'm curious.
Messaging.
I kind of want to know the answer to that question.
I know. Well, by this time next year, I'll have a whole array for you.
You mentioned tone and emotion. Nowhere are tone and emotion running higher than in presidential elections, and obviously 2024 is going to be a major one. And so as an organization, how are you thinking about or preparing for this election differently? I really, from your perspective, in terms of the way that brands and advertisers are going to be wanting to or not wanting to play a role in, I suppose there's two ways to think about it, right? So there's the coverage aspect of it from your organization, and then there's the political campaigns that want to advertise. Right. There's so much to unpack here. This could be, it's an entirely separate, this could be an entirely separate episode, but I'm just curious if you have some quick thoughts on that.
Well, it's interesting just because of the breadth of our news programming, where on CNBC, the coverage is really around, the financial and jobs market. MSNBC is more of the news side of it. Nightly news has more of the stories in the background around it. So you're going to have all these different ones, and then everyone wakes up with the Today Show to hear what's going on with that. So it's actually the most watched news organization anywhere, NBC is, when you look at it, and we also broadcast in English and in Spanish.
Yeah.
So we take it very seriously of that opportunity to make sure we're telling the right stories to the American public. And from an advertiser standpoint, what we've tried to do is make sure that we've gone to the marketplace as we would take any property to the marketplace to say, this is the type of organization that we're going to deliver. Someone may want to go into more of a hard news with an MS, whereas nightly news has a different feel on that. Today's show is a different feel. So based on their level of in-depth that they want to get in the election, they can kind of pick and choose the news organization. It makes more sense.
Yeah, makes sense. And are there an emerging set of rules, either within the organization or maybe with your fellow news organizations, around the kinds of political advertising you would accept vis-a-vis Gen AI? Is there any kind of ethical or moral consensus there? Because I know a lot of people are worried about that from the perspective of what kind of ads are we going to see in this election, this brave new world of AI.
I mean, I think the advantage that we offer at NBC, not just in election, is there's nothing that goes on our air, or that includes content or commercial, that does not go through a standards board. So I think what you are referring to a lot of times in the social side of things that happen is, even if your content might be fine, what's adjacent to it might not be where you want your brand associated to. So I think what we're going to start to hear over the next year is adjacency will start to become way more important.
So, love talking to you, and as we wrap up here, we'd love you to fill in the blank. 2024 will be the year of blank.
Year of blank, all right. I'm going to say, in a hopeful sense, I think 24, because we have changes coming in linear measurement with Nielsen, we have changes coming with cookies going away. I think we've talked about change for a long time. I think 24 is a year change actually does happen.
Well, thanks so much, and hopefully you'll come back and tell us all about it next year at CES 2025. Mark Marshall, NBCUniversal, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And I hope to be in that audience in Paris waving the American flag with a crazy American hat or wig on.
You got to do face painting as well. If you want to get on
I've
camera,
always
you gotta
wanted
go
to.
full
I've
face
always
painting.
wanted to be that guy. This could be my year. I really appreciate that.
I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here in the C Space Studio. I'm James Kotecki. We're at CES 2024, and more great conversations are just ahead, so stay here.